Another December DLC has passed, and this time around it is by the name of the Chop Shop DLC. A rather smaller DLC in size, and I'd argue that's even smaller than the Acid Lab and the Los Santos Drug Wars DLC that we got last December. Is it better? I'd say from a missions and like an overall vibe perspective, yes, definitely. From a business perspective, not so much, but I'd say that overall it is definitely been a welcome DLC to me. The business, and especially the return of Yusuf Amir, has been a very welcome one to me, and while overall it's a rather simple business, there's enough nooks and crannies in there to make it interesting. Especially the robberies that are in the game right now, and there's 2 more coming apparently, which are even better than the ones that we have so far. It is nice to see, especially with those new innovations that Rockstar has done inside those missions, basically making everything completely free roam and having to use no lobby system whatsoever, completely devoiding yourself from having any sort of need of matchmaking, which is great. Everything once again can be done solo, and especially the feature where you're able to just go to a location and then be able to receive a call from Jamal so you can do the next mission is a very welcome one. Obviously there's the usual reused locations in terms of interiors, but I think this time around the missions were different enough to not really make that much of a headache. The interiors were generally dressed up enough to not really become super recognizable and make them feel different enough than in the original counterparts, which was nice. Overall, I'd say that the missions from the 3 robbery contracts so far were very enjoyable, and I definitely think that they've done a good job with them. Hopefully this kind of quality will come up for the next 2 robberies that are still coming up in the future drip feed. It is of course a humongous shame that we're only going to be able to play these once a week, especially if you're someone who does not feel like making 2 characters or play it on a different platform. This is unfortunately the way that life is going to be for a while, until Rockstar maybe decides to make them happen more frequently, but I highly doubt that's going to happen. I've made an entire rant about this whole thing already, so go check that out instead. So I'd like to focus on the other stuff, but yeah, definitely a very big minus here, and definitely a missed opportunity considering the fact that people would like to replay content, especially when it's new, rather than having to wait, and cooldowns will always be a gripe with the game that I'll continue to have and understand, but don't want to understand because they are annoying. The tow trucking side is pretty cool. It's nice to see that the tow truck finally makes its way to GTA Online, although it is a massive shame that we're not able to use those in free roam. I would assume that this is from more a technical point of view and some online funkery with that. I have noticed that a lot of the cars, when you're towing them, do bounce all over the place. Whether that's a network related thing or that's just simply the way the physics work, it is kind of funny, but it can be annoying at times. But overall, the towing missions, they're very simple. You tow them like every 48 minutes or something, and then you wait until they're salvaged. If there would have been more done to it, I'm not entirely sure how they could have done that. Maybe you could have gone as far as to break them down yourself, you know, salvage the parts like you would be able to, for example, in any of the RP servers, but I think maybe that might be going too far into that direction. Maybe that's something that they considered but then ended up not doing because of the before mentioned maybe going too far in the RP direction. Still would have been very cool though, but I guess this way kind of works too. So overall, the business is pretty cool. The highlight again definitely are the robberies, and probably the main reason why you should be getting into the business, unless you always dreamt about just towing some cars in online. But I think that they're still cool additions and they are very much worthwhile checking out at the very least. Unless you are skinned for money, then maybe not so much. The absolute highlight for me though thus far for the DLC has been the drift races. The vibe that you get and just the sheer amount of excitement that I feel when I'm drifting through corners and seeing the amount of smoke coming off my car and my fellow opponents, at least on the next generation versions, because oh boy, those smoke improvements that they have done in those versions really bring out the shine of these drift races. The vibe and the way that the drift cars are handling is so well done, and especially considering the fact that none of these cars are fully upgraded, so no one really has an advantage, and it really comes down to how well you can control the car. The Drift Tampa seems to be, ironically enough, the car that seems to be the best one to use. And yeah, I never thought I'd see the day where the Drift Tampa actually becomes a proper drift car. The kind of scenes that I was able to just experience throughout these races, and I try to show that off in the gameplay with maybe even some Rockstar editor footage in there, but sadly that doesn't seem to actually show off the smoke effects that I was hoping it was going to do. But yeah, you'll get the general gist of it and the overall vibe of drifting behind someone and just seeing nothing but smoke coming your way. It is such a vibe. It is very well done, and I'm hoping that Rockstar will continue to expand upon this with maybe even some more drift cars and hopefully some more drift races. Sadly, we're not able to make our own drift races, which is a massive shame because I'm sure the creators out there will be able to make even better maps than Rockstar has so far, but the base maps that we do have, I'm a big fan of. And that apparently is not even the only thing that we're going to be getting in terms of racing, because apparently drag races are going to be a thing too, which I'm also very excited about because that even is going to include manual transitions, which is very interesting. So overall, I'd say that the DLC in terms of quality has been good. I'd say that's a good quality DLC. I think the main concern and the main issue that myself and many others are going to have is the quantity, the amount of content that is there. You can go through the robberies in about 2 to 3 hours if you're really stretching it, and if you know what you're doing, it's most likely less than 2, which kind of results into you wondering after those before mentioned 2 hours, so now what? Because I don't really see myself grinding tow truck jobs outside of the fact that I'm trying to get the career challenges done. And after that, it's kind of like, alright, I guess we're gonna go back to playing old content again, which is not inherently a bad thing, and I can see the design decisions behind this is like, hey, this is a new business, but we don't want you to grind the new business over and over and over again, because we also still want you to be able and want you to play the other content in the game too. They don't particularly feel like having another Kai Perico where that's the only thing people will play. And I get it, but I think that having an entire week's worth of cooldown is just simply too much. Having a 1-day cooldown would still kind of suck, but it would be a bit more understandable based on how much money you could make with them and encouraging other people to go and play something else in the meantime. But I've touched on that enough before in the previous video, so I won't. Regardless, I'd say that the Chop Shop DLC is a good DLC. It is a welcome one, and yeah, very much you could be said, is this all we're gonna get? But with the GTA 6 being on the horizon, I think this is probably the kind of size of DLC we're going to be getting leading up to that release. And when I say that, I mean that we are going to have 2 more of them probably, because July and December are probably the next time we're going to be seeing a DLC for this game. So have fun doing tow truck jobs for the next 6 months. Ahaha, ehehe. But yeah, that is pretty much all there is to say about it. I really have this overarching feeling at the moment where I'm like, have I said enough about it? Have I touched on everything in the DLC? And that's kind of how everyone is probably feeling about the DLC itself too. It's like, okay, is there really not more we can talk about? Is there really not more content? And the answer sadly is no, there isn't. So thanks for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more, and become a member like Chloe, GTA Plus, Dan, Notorious Gem, and the Crystal Onyx. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all later.